We are officially halfway through the NFL season. Who are some rookies that could break out in the second half of the year? All that and more in this episode of Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Today's episode of Locked On Dynasty is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you can win up to 10 times the money on your entry. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That is prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Welcome in to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, everybody. I am Kate Magdziuk. You can follow me on Twitter at FFBallBlast. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Marcus Mosher. You could give him a follow over on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Give the show a follow, hit that subscribe anywhere you're listening to the podcast. And if you like what we're doing, please leave us those 5-star reviews. Give us some love. Show us some love today. Show some love to your neighbor. Show some love to your favorite podcast today. And send them home with the fuzzies. Marcus, we are headed into week 9. We've got fantasy football almost over. It feels like it's been a whirlwind. And we need to start locking up some wins so we can secure those playoff spots.
Yes. We need to get some rookies that perform better for us. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. This rookie class has been good for the most part. We got some good running backs out of it. Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Dameon Pierce. We need some of these receivers to start producing. So, Kate, today...
Hey, I do want to give let's give him some credit. We've had some
we like
solid wide receivers. Yeah, we like Chris Olave, who is dominating the NFL right now, Marcus. We gotta give them some love. So
we got one. All right, we have 5 players today that we are gonna talk about that we think are gonna have some big second halves of the season. Maybe hopefully lead you to the playoffs into a fantasy championship. The first one's obvious, and we had to talk about him. George Pickens. We have not yet got to talk about the Chase Claypool trade to Chicago. That obviously opens up more targets, more snaps, more routes for George Pickens. What are you expecting the rest of the way for Pickens, Kate?
I mean, through the time we've seen with Kenny Pickett so far, George Pickens has been the go-to guy. We saw kind of an anomaly in week 8. 3 targets, 0 catches. But other than that, Marcus, we've seen some pretty high quality football, averaging 7 targets per game in each of the last 4 games prior to week 8, averaging almost 70 yards per game, finally scored his first career touchdown. I think that the ceiling is a little bit capped here by the struggles on offense. It's a little bit capped by the struggles that they're having with their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. But I do think that Chase Claypool out of the way, who, again, we have to shout out, literally announced his replacement's draft pick, which was incredible. But Marcus, like on the season so far, we've seen Chase Claypool actually get a pretty decent target share, averaging like just over 6 targets per game. So I'm going to imagine that those are probably going to be distributed to, probably some to George Pickens and some to Pat Freiermuth. And I think that's going to be what we see.
Just really quickly on the trade, I think when Chicago offered a second-round pick for Claypool, it was a deal that Pittsburgh had to do, right? Claypool,
yes,
he's been okay this year. It seems like he was a little bit of a malcontent in Pittsburgh, but it was clear they weren't going to give him a long-term extension. But I also think outside of just the compensation, one of the reasons why Pittsburgh was a little bit motivated to sell him was because I think they're ready to give Pickens a bigger workload. I think they want him to develop into the number 1, have Deontay be the number 2 who can kind of move all over the field, can be the chain mover. And George Pickens is the big play guy. So I think it makes a ton of sense after this, their week 8 bye. Or excuse me, their week 9 bye. I think this is going to be George Pickens time. And I think going forward, I would be shocked if he has a game like under 6 targets the rest of the way. Like they're going to absolutely feed him.
Yeah, I mean, looking at what the Steelers have done so far this year, I mean, it has really been Johnson, Claypool, and Pickens. I'm really interested to see like who steps up as that wide receiver 3 on the team because Chase Claypool ranked second on this team in routes run this year. 302 routes run. That's just behind Deontay Johnson, 321. Like George Pickens, he's going to have to be on the field like 90% of
Yep.
offensive snaps at this point. That's a lot of opportunity to be had, especially considering the rapport we've already seen he has with Kenny Pickett.
And my take for Pittsburgh is we could talk about who the third receiver is going to be, but I just wonder
Steven Sims, please.
it probably will be Steven Sims, but I wonder if just Matt Canada is going to see like, hey, we were using 11 personnel, 3 receivers on the field all the time because we had 3 receivers we really like. Now that we only have 2, maybe we'll use more of a fullback on some plays. Maybe we'll use more 2 tight end sets. It's not going to be anything dramatic, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think they were like number 1 or number 2 in the league in 3 receiver sets. If that goes down to like 11th in the NFL in the second half of the year. So we are still buying George Pickens. I should mention to you, Kate, do you want to guess where he's being ranked among dynasty rookie receivers right now?
Third.
Still 5th.
Interesting. Okay.
So he's behind Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and still Jameson Williams.
Actually, very interesting that he is still behind Jameson Williams. I think part of that probably is again a product of being stuck with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think like for as much as we've seen the Lions struggle this year, they have produced yardage. They have produced points, even as volatile as they've been. So I get it, but I also I know that we've seen some of these clutch plays from George Pickens, like very clutch, big boy, first round pick plays. And it became clear, I think, throughout the training camp, throughout the off season, that the reason he fell really was due to the injury. And if he hadn't had that bad luck, I think we would have seen him drafted along these other wide receivers.
All right, let's take a quick break so we can tell you guys about Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile will then handcraft a perfect engagement ring, and each ring is one of a kind. Make your moment sparkle with BlueNile.com, and Locked On Dynasty listeners can get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use promo code Locked On. That is promo code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured. It ships free, and it arrives in this secret packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, Kate, a couple more receivers that we're going to talk about. Treylon Burks, he's been out a little bit with a hamstring injury. We're not quite sure when he's going to return, but you look at this passing offense right now, and how could he not smash in the second half of the season, assuming he's healthy?
Yeah, I think, we're going to see hopefully a healthier version of Treylon Burks. But I mean, we started to see him come on in training camp, and it's a huge, huge, unfortunate bit that we did not get to see him longer throughout this actual regular season. In week 1, I'll remind you, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 55 receiving yards on just 24 total offensive snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've seen no other receiver in this offense step up, period. Like, I don't know if you ask me who the wide receiver 1 for this team is. I don't know, Marcus. Like, it doesn't feel like there's any true wide receiver 1. Robert Woods leads the way, 34 targets, 22 receptions, 256 receiving yards. Like, no. But after Robert Woods, do you know who the next 2 leaders are in terms of receiving yards on this team, Marcus?
Is it Westbrook-Ikhine? Is he
not
one of them?
He's not.
Is it Dontre Hillard?
He's one of them.
Austin Hooper?
Derrick Henry. So
There you go.
first, leading the team in targets and receiving yards, we've got Robert Woods with 34 targets, 256. Derrick Henry has the second most targets on this team at 18. Dontrell Hilliard, 17. And then Treylon Burks actually ranks second in terms of wide receiver targets in this team. And he hasn't played. So
No.
literally haven't seen him since week 4. And that is the state of this passing offense right now. There's a ton of opportunity. Now, much like the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think there's a lot of questions about this passing offense. We saw with Malik Willis coming in for his first game, didn't do much. I think he had 10 total pass attempts in his first game as an NFL starter, and they made this entire discussion about Derrick Henry and the Derrick Henry show. So what kind of volumes there? I'm not really sure, but I do think that Treylon Burks can immediately take a step forward, be this team's wide receiver 1. He has I think all of the traits for immediate dominance, and
Yes.
he's I think well enough defined in his skill set that he can step into that role immediately.
And what's so great about Burks is he's just the type of player that only needs 6 touches to have, a really strong day, because he's just so explosive with the football in
He's
his hands.
explosive, and he's built like a tank, Marcus.
Yes.
He looks like a running back after the catch. I mean, at 225 pounds, it ranks him in the 97th percentile for weight among wide receivers, but he doesn't look like he is 225 pounds. Like,
In this
explosive for
offense,
days.
and this offense needs him so badly. Vrabel, I think he was playing a little bit of, I don't know, can't use the word hardball with Burks in training camp and preseason. But after the way this offense has played, especially in the passing game over the last few weeks, they're going to need him. So once he's back on the field, which I think is going to be relatively soon, I think he's going to get a lot of touches. You're going to see him getting, carries out of the backfield. Treylon Burks, somebody who I'm willing to maybe make a move for now, as his value has dropped a little bit, because I do think you're going to have several startable games from him in the second half of the season. Another receiver that's being drafted close to Treylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, who we saw was performing so well before he was injured. You've got to be a little bit excited about the future here, Kate, with Dotson, because while Taylor Heineke's not anything special, he does throw the ball down the field and he's aggressive, and this passing offense is just better with him. So is Dotson somebody that we're excited about in the second half of the year?
I really, really, really am excited about Jahan Dotson. Marcus, I'm unsure what this is going to look like with Taylor Heineke under center, but we definitely saw when Jahan Dotson was under center, or when Jahan Dotson was playing with Carson Wentz under center, it seems like he had that best connection. Now we know Terry McLaurin has a pretty solid connection with Taylor Heineke, but I mean, to start the season, Marcus, we saw absolute dominance from Jahan Dotson. We saw absolutely dominant, terms of touchdown production. He still leads all wide receivers in receiving touchdowns from the 2022 NFL draft class. In
Crazy.
just a 4-game sample size, 12 catches, 152 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's a touchdown per game, Marcus. He looked good. He looked dominant, and I think he's going to really open things up for this entire offense. And I'm all in.
Here's the best part about Dotson and why you should be buying. Here is the percentage of snaps that he played on offense in the first 3 games when he was fully healthy: 88%, 99%, 87%. He's just on the field all the time. And if you're on the field, you're going to get opportunities, even in a somewhat low volume passing offense. If you're on the field for 89% of the snaps, you're going to see 7 or 8 targets almost by default. So we like Jahan Dotson. We like him actually with this. I think the skill set with Taylor Heineke makes him even more appealing because he's willing to throw the ball down the field. I think Dotson, who should be back within the next week or so, I think I would not be surprised, Kate, if we're looking at him at the end of the season and he has a stretch where it's like 4 games, 375 yards and 5 touchdowns, like to finish the year. He's somebody that I want on my team right now.
Yeah, I think he's a great trade target right now, especially while people are forgetting just how hot he started the season. I mean, like, sure, there are a lot of other flashier names like the Garrett Wilsons, like the Drake Londons, but I mean, for what it's worth, honestly, all of those offenses are just as volatile as we've seen in Washington so far. Romeo Dubes, like we've really not seen any sort of consistency there in terms of his rapport with Aaron Rodgers. Like, I think Jahan Dotson, I would not be surprised at all if he ends up finishing maybe second or third among rookie wide receivers in terms of receiving yards. And I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes this season leading all of these wide receivers in touchdowns.
I really like the Jahan Dotson buy, but I actually got one that I like a little bit better than him. I'm going to save it until after the break so we can tell you guys about Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for betting football and the start of basketball season. Kate, you and I made a ton of money betting on basketball last year. I'm already in the positive this year, so it's been fun so far. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every single sport out there. It is the fastest and the easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Kate, if you'll just give me a second, I want to lay the case out for Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, you know for a while that I've been a Wan'Dale fan, and I think he was going to have a big role to start the season. I really do. He was somebody that the Giants really wanted in the second round, that Brian Dable personally picked out. He was playing in the slot, in training camp. We got rave reviews, and then he got hurt in week 1, and we didn't see him for the next 5 weeks. Played against the Ravens in week 6, scored a touchdown in that game, 3 for 37, but only on 15 snaps. Why I'm encouraged about him over there, going into the second half of the year is just how much he's playing. Over the last 2 weeks against Jacksonville in week 7, 35 routes run. Against the Seahawks in week 8, 34 routes run. 69% of the offensive snaps. I just think he's going to be somebody who's on the field for 70% of the snaps, who fits well with Daniel Jones, because he doesn't like to throw the ball down the field. I could see Wan'Dale Robinson being the team's leading receiver the rest of the way. And I know that doesn't mean a lot, but if he's getting you 6 for 75 and a touchdown every couple weeks, you're going to put him in your starting lineup.
I like this, Marcus. I think, things are trending in the right direction, right? But I do want to ask, what is the upside? Because I'm not sold on the upside, and
it's fair. I think the upside is he's just going to be somebody who is a lock to get you 5 or 6 catches a week. He's so explosive with the ball in his hands, and he's going to be involved in the offense. So while he's not going to put up these big wide receiver 1 numbers, he could just be a guy that you plug into your flex every single week, and he's getting you 13 points, 14 points. And in a year with so many wide receiver injuries and so many busts and so many bad offenses, I kind of like that reliability. I think he's going to have that over the second half of the year.
Let's just look at measurables. Okay. So, obviously measurables
He's
aren't
tiny.
everything.
He's tiny. Listen,
Second
he knows that.
percentile.
He's been tiny his whole life.
Second percent. I'm tiny.
Right.
I'm very short, but I'm not trying to play football over here, and I'm not trying to trade for me in any of my dynasty leagues. In terms of height, he is in the second percentile. In terms of weight,
big.
he is in the 6th percentile. Wingspan, he is in the literal 0th. Is that a word? 0th percentile. Arm length, 0th percentile. hand size, 20th percentile. Um,
I, I want you to look up something though, just because this is important. First of all, go look at Cole Beasley, who played under Brian Dable the last few years, right? 5'7", first percentile, 175, fourth percentile. Cole Beasley, over the last couple of years, again, not a huge fantasy producer, but somebody that we did have in our lineups every week as a flex. And then go look at Isaiah McKenzie, who Brian Dable also had in Buffalo. 5'7", 173, 0th percentile height, 3rd percentile weight, 1st percentile arm length. Like Brian Dable knows how to use this type of player.
okay. I mean,
Can you
that
tell
was
I'm passionate
my
about this?
that was my biggest concern. And I will say, like, in terms of like the Cole Beasley comp, in terms of the Isaiah McKenzie comp, like these aren't names that I mean, we've really thought had all that much relevance in terms of fantasy production, at least on a consistent basis. Um, but I mean, I'm willing to wait and see. I'm not targeting Wan'Dale Robinson, but I'll leave those shares
Okay.
to you, Marcus.
I just want to say, like in 2020, right when Cole Beasley was with the Bills, he had 900 something yards that season, 4 touchdowns, and he had multiple weeks with double-digit catches. I just think something like that could happen in New York, especially with the lack of weapons they have and with the quarterback. Daniel Jones does not want to throw the ball deep. So getting rid of the ball to Wan'Dale as an extension of the running game, I think makes some sense.
Okay.
All right. Last one. Now that I'm done with my little spiel.
Whew.
Kyren Williams. Kate, tell us a little bit about Kyren Williams and why you think he's going to have a nice second half to the season.
Now this comes more on the back. Like I just crapped all over Wan'Dale Robinson's measurables. Like Kyren Williams, not all that much better from a measurable standpoint. He's a relatively small back, 5'9", 194 pounds. That 194 pounds ranks in the 7th percentile for running backs. Small hands. And I think probably the worst part is like that 40-yard dash. I think all thought that we were going to see a much better 40, ran a 4.65, ranks in the 23rd percentile among running backs. And at that size, you want to see him perform so far over that. We want to see him run that much faster. This this suggestion or this hopeful second half breakout, this is more of a hopeful one, right? So
Yep.
Kyren Williams coming out of Notre Dame, I do think he looked faster than his 4.65. Like I think he tested very poorly, but I again, like looking at his on the field speed, I don't think it was as bad as we actually saw here.
I
But
would agree with you.
let's talk about opportunity, because that is, I think, the biggest thing for Kyren Williams. The Rams have shown that they're not really in a good place with Cam Akers. It sounds like Cam Akers, like they're willing to bring him back this year, but it sounds like Cam Akers feels kind of done with the Rams. He says it's not going to be in the best interest of his career. I'm still very curious. I want to hear like the 30 for 30 on this relationship, but I mean, there's opportunity to be had here, even with Cam Akers out of the lineup. Like we're not seeing Darrell Henderson get any work. We're not seeing anybody take over this role. And now Kyren Williams, healthier to return. I think there's opportunity for him to take over this backfield in a time where they need somebody to step up.
100% agree. It's just I do think this offense at some point is going to get back on track. The Rams have had a relatively tough schedule to start, and it does open up for them a little bit. We know that running backs can be productive in that scheme. We know they like to run the ball inside the 5-yard line. Kyren Williams is somebody that Sean McVay talked up a ton this offseason. There's just a really big opportunity there, and Kyren Williams is being ranked pretty low, I'm assuming, in your dynasty leagues. In fact, there's a good chance he's even sitting on waivers right now because he hasn't played at all this year. So, Kyren Williams, I would not be surprised at all if we get to the end of the year and we're really excited about what he could do in 2023 and thinking about him as a starting running back going forward with the Rams. I think that's a really good possibility. What do you think is the right trade value for him? Third? Is a third too much?
A third feels like a lot.
Yeah.
But maybe a fourth and throw in one of those, low end wide receivers that you have.
Again, check your waiver wires because I would not be surprised at all. He's just somebody that's a speculative ad as we go into week 9 because the Rams have got to do something at running back, right? And it's not Darrell Henderson. It's certainly not going to be Cam Akers. It's not Malcolm Brown. Maybe Kyren Williams.
Yeah, I mean, like there's literally no downside. I think in acquiring Kyren Williams right now, the potential is there. I think the talent is more than what we saw him test to at the NFL Combine. Like,
Yes.
I'll definitely have a couple of shares of Kyren Williams just in case. Sounds like he should return. And maybe you don't even trade for him ahead of week 9, Marcus. He might return this week against the Bucks, but will he get all that much done against
I'd wait
the
one more
Bucks?
week. Yeah.
Wait one more week, see if he totally flubs and maybe doesn't even play all that many snaps in his first game returning.
Yes.
Then trade for him next week and enjoy.
I'm in. All right. That is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Kate and I will be back tomorrow to break down this awesome Eagles-Texan game that Kate's going to be watching firsthand. She's going to be at the game taking notes on Jalen Hurts, right?
Yes.
Make sure you follow the show. We're on Twitter at Locked On Dynasty. Please go give us some reviews, some 5-star reviews. We would really, really appreciate it. The reviews make our day. So please do that. Go follow Kate on Twitter at FFBallBlast. I am at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.